So you like 1960s sci-fi films, do you, punk? Hello everyone, welcome back to the Reese's Writing YouTube channel. Today we're going to be watching five science fiction films from the 1960s. I haven't watched many sci-fi films. I've watched the obvious popular ones, sort of like Blade Runner, Alien, all that sort of stuff, but the other stuff I haven't really delved into, and these videos are me just sort of going in and trying some films that I haven't tried, and giving my first impressions, what they're like, and yeah. So there'll be all 1960s films. The first one that I'll be watching is The Last Man on Earth by insert director name here. Oh, it's directed by two people. Is it directed by two people? It's directed by Ubaldo Ragona and Sidney Salco. Sidney Salco's done a lot. A lot. Holy moly. And Ubaldo Ragona has not. So, yes, I will see you when I've finished with that. Okay, so I just finished The Last Man on Earth by Sidney Salco / Ubaldo Ragona, and it was pretty good. It was enjoyable. This I didn't know before actually watching it that it's based on I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, which I love. I love that book, and I'd really love to reread it because it's really good. It's quite short, but yeah, it's an amazing post-apocalyptic book. And if you have a choice between The Last Man on Earth or I Am Legend is the one that you need to go and read because it's amazing. The Last Man on Earth film is pretty good as well. It's not bad. There's a lot of good stuff in it. I would say the post-apocalyptic stuff is not too good. It doesn't feel too post-apocalyptic. It feels very staged, of course. It feels like very Hollywood. It doesn't feel like he's in any danger at all. It's just a lot of zombie-like thing. People battering at his door. When in the book, you feel like he's properly just stuck there. Like he has no way of getting out. It's properly barricaded properly in the book. But there's a lot of good moments in there that I don't want to spoil or anything, that are good in the film as well. I believe there's no origin in the book, but in the film there is. I may be wrong about that. Pretty sure that the book stays mainly in the post-apocalypse, and it doesn't give a reason why they're there, why these weird vampire things are there. But maybe I've falsely remembered that. Yes, there's a lot more to do with the past life that the professor has, and discovering this strain of virus or something, and how this sort of post-apocalyptic situation happens. Yeah, I feel like the book does a pretty bang-up job of sticking you in this place and staying there, keeping you gripped, keeping you in the thoughts of the guy and his struggles, and makes it really engaging to keep you there. It doesn't really need to go back to the past because the present is so engrossing. But yeah, there's a lot of voiceover in the film, a sort of inner monologue, which sort of happens a lot in classical films, even though people in film courses like mine tell you to not do a voiceover because it's lazy. Yeah. But overall, The Last Man on Earth was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. There's worse classic films that I've read, that I've watched, that I found boring. This I didn't really find that boring. So I would give The Last Man on Earth 3 stars. And then the next one is Alphaville by Jean-Luc Godard, which is he's the best. Alphaville. So that was Alphaville. Jeez. Jean-Luc Godard does not hold back on the weird shit, and this is pretty damn weird. So it is science fiction-y, and I thought that I did watch some Jean-Luc Godard film before this, but I didn't. I thought he directed 8.5, which he did not. So anyway, Alphaville. So Alphaville is this guy who comes to a place to pretty much discover what's going on in this place, and that's all I'm going to say about the plot. You should really just go into this blind, because it's very experimental, very like what is it called? There's a lot of like flashing images and brief images. There's a voiceover which is pretty horrible to listen to on headphones, and I know that it's like someone who has problems with his talking. I don't know the exact thing, but it's like a thing that you put up to your voice box so you can play it. Something's happened to it's pretty horrible to listen to, and maybe that's the point. Like it's a pretty horrible sounding voiceover, but besides the film was actually pretty good. It's a stretch to call this enjoyable in that the acting, there's something really like, I'm pretty sure this is sort of amateur acting, or like, the way it's all done, and it's done a lot in this type of filmmaking, is that every sort of decision is really spontaneous. There's no real decision making. People just do it. There's no hesitation. There's no like reaction or anything like that. There's no reaction. They just do stuff. So there's just like, they'll move from point A to point B, and they'll hit someone and like not even really think about it. Like it's just a style of type of acting that's kind of seen throughout quite a lot of these type of films. And I believe that it's amateur like acting. It's sort of this, there's a lot that you can see in this film that people have sort of gained inspiration from. The Matrix, Blade Runner, very heavily inspired by this. There's just a lot of really weird scenes in this, like swimming scenes. It's very French. There's a whole host of like misogyny, but I think this sort of shows a reason for those sort of misogynistic type behaviors, and like the very obvious sexualization of women, and their roles are very sexual. Like, as soon as you see a woman, except like one, they're instantly there to just pleasure the man. Like, there's a plot sort of point. Besides that, the story is quite interesting. Although it sort of makes sense, and maybe if I watched this in the 1960s, I wouldn't have found it as easy, because I've seen sort of similar films that probably harken back to this film. But yeah, if you want to know where certain types of like inspirations for Blade Runner and Matrix, a sort of grimy noir-esque science fiction, this is probably where you need to go to. There may be something before this. I'm not entirely sure. In terms of film, I'm sure there's something before this in terms of books. I'm just not entirely sure. But yeah, in terms of rating it, I think I was more interested in it than The Last Man on Earth. I was more interested in where it was going to go. Like, it was less predictable, and more sort of interesting from a intellectual. There's a lot of philosophical looks at life, at technology, how we use technology, and the sort of class divisions as well. That is quite a big thing, and country divisions, city divisions, and like private corporations being a big like monopoly over technology is also a big thing that's played in this film. So yeah, I think it played with a lot more sort of interesting subjects to make a more interesting film. So I'd give it 3.5 stars. And that was Alphaville. And now we shall watch The Time Machine, H.G. Wells' book that I've read before, and it's not my favourite H.G. Wells book, but it was pretty good. The Time Machine by George Powell from 1960. So I'll see you then when I've finished The Time Machine. This is Reese from the past, talking to people in the future. So yeah, I just watched The Time Machine, directed by George Powell, and it was pretty good. It was very well filmed. It got a big budget. I was not expecting that big of a budget, but it's a full-on Hollywood film with massive sets, pretty high-tech type CGI and animations. Stop motion there was some really good stop motion in this. There was, like, when he was sort of time traveling, there were certain parts where like forests, flowers would die, or people would die, and you would see that decay, which I found really cool, and it was really well done. There was a part where I didn't see it. I was like waiting for something to happen. I wasn't exactly expecting it to be like that huge, but it was massive. and I had like the sound on full blast. I gave myself like a jump scare. It was a full type thing. But yeah, the film itself, it's based on H.G. Wells' is The Time Machine, which is from the 1800s. I'm not entirely sure when. This sort of plays on the fact that this is made in the 1960s, in going to times that's happened after the novel has been made. So it goes to like World War One, World War Two, and the 1960s, but then it sort of, it goes way over that to maybe a million AD or something crazy like that. And then it gets a bit weird. I think that's when I sort of disliked the book, in when it went full on to like a million AD. I didn't find that story that interesting. I loved the whole story of him creating a time machine and showing it to his buddies and chatting about what the hell they do with time and the fourth dimension, discovering the fourth dimension, and like, having a little chit chat about that and what he should use it for, and them not believing him, and the whole philosophical ideas of time and the civilizational growth of humanity. I think that's a really cool part that he plays with, like growth of intelligence, or the decrease of intelligence, or a division in power, like who controls people, has the more intelligence or the more power or the resources, and how that plays is really big in the future. And I like that sort of thing. The stories within that are less interesting to me. Fighting weird creatures is, if it's done well, it's pretty good, but it wasn't too interesting to me. Similar as in the book as in the film. I'm not as interested in that sort of part, but there you go. Yeah, I enjoyed the film to a degree. I was sort of getting bored at a point. I just wanted to get on. I guess maybe because I read the book that I wasn't that interested. Although I did read I Am Legend. I guess I just enjoyed I Am Legend a bit more. Maybe that's just sort of why I enjoyed The Last Man on Earth more than The Time Machine, as I just enjoyed the story more. Yeah. But there's not much to really say. I liked sort of the narration. It was a bit more poetic with that compared to The Last Man on Earth, as it was H.G. Wells, and he's a Victorian and has very like floral prose, or like floral descriptions, and dialogue is a bit more sort of interesting. But some of the accents, like, they were obviously Americans, but they were doing a pretty good job. Yeah, it was pretty good. I was getting a bit bored at some points. I would give The Time Machine 2.5 stars. And then the next film is Seconds by John Frankenheimer, about a middle-aged banker agrees to a procedure that will fake his death. It sounds quite interesting, and yeah, I'll see you when I've finished Seconds. I've already forgotten the title. Holy moly. Okay. Seconds by John Frankenheimer. Really good film. I think it's a grower, not a shower. I feel like when I was watching it, there was parts where I thought that it was getting slow. It was was a bit of a crawler. Like, yeah, it just felt a bit boring at times. And there was parts that, felt like It's a Wonderful Life. I guess it is sort of Road Not Taken type film, which I like. I enjoy those films. They're really well done. And this was really well done as well. I thought the cinematography was amazing. Like there was a lot of like close-up shots like behind their sort of back, like following them. There was lots of shots of their face. It felt super personal. People were right up against the lens, and it added to the sort of uncomfortable feel. It felt very like body horror-esque, and I don't think there's any body horror films before this. It had the feeling of, sort of disturbing, awkward feeling that you get from a body horror like David Cronenberg or something like that, where everything's just super up close and tight, and like there's lots of sweating, and he's pretty much the guy that's the main character is pretty much being forced to do this thing. He's like being pushed along, and it's like really up close, and it's just relentless to a degree. Like there's points where it does slow down, and that's the points where I felt like it was getting a bit slow, but then it picked up pace again, and then it went back to the uncomfortable, like awkwardness of it all, and the main character just sort of felt a bit just out of his depth, out of like life, and completely like not in control of what he wanted to do. That's kind of a spoiler, I guess, but yeah. That's the feeling I got. The editing was really good. Like I thought that, the cinematography was quite groundbreaking, I would say. I think it's got the feeling of like Citizen Kane, where there's a lot of like depth to the camera. Like there would be someone right up against the camera, and there would be someone sort of talking behind them, and that was sort of really cool, like showing of dynamics and power control over people. And the performance was really well done. Like the development of this character was really well done. The two actors showed it really well. It showed this development of like his feelings and his thought processes, and like just the whole progression of it all felt really well done. Like it could have been like completely two different films, and it did. There was a point where like there was a crossing over, and it felt like a different. It almost. I was like, I think watching it and like thinking this is a completely different film, but then it sort of came back to itself, and it sort of started to pick up like the feeling again. Yeah, it just felt right. Like there was a change, but it was sort of necessary to the development of the film. Yeah, really good film. I think during it I was kind of bored at some points, but thinking back about it, it was really well done. It should be, if you want to be a filmmaker, you should really, I think it's a great film to watch to see what you can do with the medium, with sort of camera placement and showing emotions from camera placements. So yes, I would give Seconds 4 stars. I mean, and it is a novel by, I'll put the name up. It was some Ely guy. So that is Seconds. And then the next one is the final one. The next and final film of the video is The Face of Another by Hiroshi Teshigahara. Gahara? Something like that. I think it's about a guy who takes someone's face and sticks it on his face, on his, yeah. It's going to be freaky, and it's going to be interesting, and it's Japanese, so Japanese films can be fucking nuts, and I will not expect anything else. Right, so that was The Face of Another by Hiroshi Teshigahara. So this is also a novel by Kobe Abe, I think his name is. So another film. I think the only one that I didn't watch that wasn't a book was Alphaville. Yoga mat just commit suicide. Yeah, it was good. I think it had a lot of intricacies, a lot of philosophical issues that it dealt with, self identity, what makes you, like beauty standards. It was very similar to the film that I just watched, Seconds, in that it was, someone wanting to be more than he is now, and the problems that came by him changing himself in a dramatic way, how that can affect your day-to-day life, becoming a nobody as he wanted in this thing, but he never actually did. How the sort of true inner self can never be sort of escaped. You can never really run away from your true self. I think that's quite a big one. And yeah, it was good. I think there was a lot of weird shit going on, as with not all, but as with most Japanese films, there was a lot of weird imagery in there. But it wasn't too weird. I've seen weirder, way weirder. This one was a pretty like tame Japanese film, but it felt very theatre. It felt like a play, with the way people were moving. There was like light that would come in, which I thought was very cool. It sort of came in like this like it would just highlight the two people talking and everyone else would be dark, and also the sound would come in. The background noise would be erased from the sound, and it would just be the person speaking, so it felt very personal, intimate. But it's weird, and it has a lot of good values that it plays with and ideas. There's a lot of stuff about World War II and how that has affected people, how that has like mentally destroyed people and like left people completely scarred from it. I think that was, it's kind of a sort of metaphor, the whole film, for what happens to people after they come back from the war, how it changes people, or how you think it changes people, but actually it doesn't, and you're sort of still the same person on the inside, but just changed, scarred from those things that you experienced. So yeah, it was a really philosophical and interesting film to watch. I thought it was quite slow at points, for me anyway. The same with Seconds, but I felt like this was more slower. And yeah, overall, really good film. I would highly recommend you watch it, and I would give it 4 stars as well. So that is the films. Have you watched any of those? What do you think about them? What would you rate them? Everything, blah blah blah. The list will be in my links, in my YouTube comment that you can go check out, and you can follow me on Letterboxd and see my reviews of films and everything. But thanks for watching. If you like what you see, If you like what you watch, then like, subscribe, comment, do all that sort of stuff. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.